Oh, I gotta look at the camera. Okay. Hi, my friends. My name's... Alright, it's good enough. Hi, my friends. My name's Matt Correa. I'm a composer and an arranger in my free time, among various other things. And today's a very exciting day because this is my first ever video on YouTube. So I don't know what I'm doing. I have 0 subscribers, 0 views, 0 comments. So we'll just see what happens with it. But I'm doing this for fun because I like music, and I think this is a great way to get into music. So today we are we're diving into Back to the Future, Suite for Orchestra. This is by the composer Alan Silvestri, who, interesting story, I actually got to meet. I was an intern. I know you don't care, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I was an intern at the Jacksonville Symphony in Jacksonville, Florida. This was like maybe 2015 or 2016. I can't remember. And they did a Back to the Future live in concert. It was actually the first time I saw the film and heard the soundtrack to it. And it was great. Like, I loved it. And I loved hearing the film score with it. But anyway, he was there as a guest star. He didn't conduct it or anything. He just kind of made an appearance. But we were doing publicity, and they were rehearsing the day before. And I saw him, and we took a picture with him in front of the poster. And then he said, "Oh, you and I need to take a selfie together." And so we did, and I have the picture, and it's going to pop up on the screen right now because that's the kind of quality editing we're doing here. But anyway, so I got to meet him. It was pretty cool. He was a pretty chill guy. Very nice interaction. But anyway, we're doing Back to the Future, Suite for Orchestra. And yeah, so before we get into it, and if you want to skip all this, feel free to go ahead. I'm going to make a new chapter or whatever it's called to just jump right into the score. But why study film scores? Why study scores in general? Well, I'm glad you asked. You know, music is so impactful to all of us. And to me, looking at film scores as a composer and arranger, it just helps to dive into it. It's almost like a behind the scenes on, like, how does this score, how does this music sound the way it does? And this gives you a behind the scenes look at exactly the notes every instrument is playing together to give us that sound, to make this theme, to do all the little technicalities that are going on behind the scenes to make this incredible display that fits well with the movie or whatever the music is. So I don't care what kind of music you like. I don't care if you write orchestral music like I do, or if you just write music in general, or if you just enjoy consuming music. That's all totally fine. This gives you a behind the scenes look into how your favorite music is made and all that stuff. So here's a little peek at the score here. But this is available from Hal Leonard. I messed this all up. It's available from Hal Leonard. It's the Symphony Pops thing. So now, before we get into the actual score, let's talk about the instrumentation here. Fairly standard. We got flute 1, 2, piccolo, oboe, third oboe. I held up 2 fingers. Third oboe is doubling on the English horn. Kind of an interesting choice, you know, throughout the piece, and that's fairly common, but throughout the piece I don't really see much English horn being used, but we'll get into that a little later. It is used in a slightly slower part, and that makes sense. English horn has kind of a more mellow sound, and it has a different range than the oboe, and it can be used in a more like calming, romantic kind of style, and that is seen later in the piece. Now we have B-flat clarinet 1, 2, bass clarinet, 2 bassoons, and a contrabassoon, which is just an octave below the bassoon, and it kind of gives the bass a little extra power. You're not necessarily going to be able to pick it out individually, just because of the reverb and all these other things with the recordings, but it just gives the bass a little more power. So nice choice with the contrabassoon. We have 4 French horns, 4 trumpets, which is not uncommon. I mean, generally we have 3, but 4 also works. And let's see, 3 trombones, 1 tuba, typical. Timpani, 3 percussion, harp, piano, and then the string section, which is violins 1, 2, viola, cello, bass. So fairly standard instrumentation here. So yeah, let's just get right into it. My screensaver went on, so I have to fix that. And my keyboard is sideways because, you know, small desk. But anyway, okay, I'm going to record this audio on the browser as well, so we'll see if this works. Okay, I'm in trial mode for this recording, so we'll see what happens. All right, so we are officially recording the browser. Now, this recording is from the Brussels Philharmonic. It's the best recording I found of this suite from Back to the Future. So I'm using that. I will link to it below in the description. Again, we are not going to be listening to this to enjoy it. I will be stopping a lot to really dissect what's going on and talk about it. So I highly recommend you listen to the full piece first, because that'll give you really the full picture of it. You'll get to hear it again, refresh your memory if you haven't heard it in a while, or maybe you've never heard it, and then come back to this video and we'll really get into the technicalities of it and the orchestration and what's going on here. So with that said, let's get into it. All right. Oh, I hear my own voice. I'm turning that off right now. Okay. I think it's still recording. All right. This is very professional, by the way. I'm doing pretty good. Oh, and this is not recording the audio. Hold on. Okay. All right. All right, so already, very interesting introduction here. So what is going on? Well, you have violins 1 and 2. They are starting right off with a high note tremolo, which means the bow is going fast, as quick as they can. Forte piano, so they start off real loud and then get soft. And that is when the French horns come in with that melody. Of course, we have the crash cymbal starting us off, and the French horns do their bum 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 ba-da-dum bum bum bum. But in the second measure, when we have bum 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 bum, the bass come in on the second beat, bum 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 ba-da-dum, and that's obviously cello, bass clarinet, bassoon, contrabassoon coming in with that melody, and bass trombone and tuba. So really powerful start. I can see a lot of pieces start off with heavy bass right at the beginning, boom, you know, and then have the French horns come in. And I see why he didn't do that. He waited a measure. Measure 1 might sound a little weak with just the crash cymbal and the strings, but measure 2 really shines because the bass come in and it really adds that punch. Now trumpets and woodwinds with the melody there. And we have a forte piano and a fermata, so they're kind of just holding at this point. And that's when we go into cut time, which is 2-2. That means a half note is 1 beat. So it kind of just doubles everything up. So it speeds everything up. Okay, whoa. So that's pretty crazy, right? So that is the violins 1 and 2 doing triplets. So and then the violas and cellos kind of add in up to that second measure here. And here we got the Western theme, horns with the melody, everything else essentially with the accents. We've now switched to strings, woodwinds, trumpets with the melody. Now, the French horns are playing sort of a counter melody here. So the melody is ba-dum bum ba-dum bum bum. French horns are doing this bum 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 bum. Just a nice little counter melody. I'm going to go back a little bit so we can hear it again. Bum ba-dum bum. So French horns again. All right, listen to the French horns with this. Now, violin 1, 2, viola with the melody here. Everything with an accent. Quiet. Horns are playing the harmony right now. Add the trumpets. And we're back to the beginning of the Western melody, but now the horns are playing the melody like they were before, but we have added the trombones doing that bum, 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 bum thing. So they are now doing that part. And now we switched back to trumpets with the melody. Horns are doing that counter melody thing, but we've added a whole new dimension, which is upper strings and woodwinds are now doing kind of just doing eighth notes going throughout there. Low brass here, so we got horns in the lower register, bass trombone, tuba, add the trumpet there. Okay, so this is an interesting part. I'm going to take my headphones off for this. So most recordings of this skip over completely my favorite part of the piece, which is the slow part. And it's the flute doing dun 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 dun, that theme, which is honestly one of my favorites. So we're going to hold right here. I'm going to try to get a recording from the end credits, which has this part in it. It's a little different the way it's orchestrated, but we're gonna go with it, and we're gonna go through that part, and then I'll switch back to this recording from the Brussels. So give me a second here. I'll edit this out. So here it is. So we've got the violins 1 and 2, first oboe and first clarinet with the melody here. This is when the English horn is playing as well. They're playing the just half notes. Nice triplet effect here with the cellos and then the violas taking over for them. So ba da da da, and then ba da 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 da. Very good effect, doubled with the bassoons, clarinets, English horn. And I do want to talk about a really good effect here. So far in the slow part, the melody has been in unison. So violins and everyone else playing the melody have been playing the same notes. But it's interesting to note that he switches and adds a harmony in, not when you might expect. So let's go back a little bit. So we're still in unison here, right? Unison, we jump up an octave. And here, so that's where we add the harmony. Very interesting stylistic choice, but I think really impactful there. So we still have that triplet, quarter note triplet going through. So this part is just absolutely beautiful, obviously, but what do we have going on here? So flute solo, clearly. Now violins 1 and 2 are split quite a bit. So violin 1 is Divisi A3, so they're playing 3 different notes among the first violins. which is G, F, and C. And violin 2 is playing G and F an octave below that. Piano, of course, with a little ba-da-da-da-da-da. Drop an octave lower, now the violins 1 and 2 are playing the melody, along with one oboe. And it's interesting, it's almost like a waltz, but not really. But the harmony here, it's always resting on the first beat. So, bum, ba-da-dum, 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 which is really nice. So now we have the horns playing the melody along with the viola. Accents with the upper strings and flute. Okay, and now we have reached the beginning where we were with the other suite. So we're going to switch back to that. It's better quality, you can hear it. So it's worth noting here, the bass notes are doing something very interesting, which is they're syncopated. So they're not doing bum, 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 bum. They're actually on the off beat. So they rest the first beat of the measure, and then they're off from there. So the melody is da 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 bum 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 ba da da. Bass notes are doing bum 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 bum. So they're kind of a beat behind almost, and it feels a little off, but it gives it that intensity, it gives it that drive, and just a little bit of what you don't expect to be happening. So let's go back a little bit. It's that driving bass note. And we're accelerating here. Now, what is that pulse going on? Because right away we got that bump, 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 bump. What is that? So, horns, all four horns. Viola, cello. Everything else is either doing the accent, which is that bump, 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 bump. So we got woodwinds doing that, we got trumpets doing that, xylophone, and then violins 1 and 2. Okay, very interesting thing here. So he intertwines two melodies. So we have the bum-ba-dum, bum-ba-dum-bum, which is kind of this new theme that he's presented here in the suite. And then intertwined with that, we have violins 1, 2, flute 1, 2, piccolo, doing this da-da-da-da, bum, 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 which is, of course, the main theme that is not come yet, but it's coming a little later in the suite. So he's teasing that for us. So let's go back a little bit. So listen for this counter melody. Okay, so that is a beautiful effect right there. What is going on? Well, a lot of trills. So what's trilling here? We have flutes, piccolos, clarinets, violins 1 and 2, and they're all trilling kind of on different notes here. So it's a great effect. Violin 1 is divisi, trilling 2 notes to 2 notes. And same with violin 2. So a lot of divisi here. Just beautiful trills, creating that effect. So let's go back. Bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 ba-dum. So those beautiful bass lines here, while every other instrument is basically holding a note, the bass line is really where he adds the creativity here. So bum ba dum bum ba dum, which is, you know, bass clarinet, bassoon, contrabassoon, bass trombone, tuba, even viola's doing it, and then cello and bass. So basically, practically every bass instrument. And of course, this is the first main time we've heard this theme, at least in the suite, but it's not the full theme yet. Key change. This is the first time we hear the theme, by the way. Bum 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 ba-da-dum. Okay, so what's going on here? Well, the melody is obviously played by the trumpets. Also under that is French horns. You can't hear them as well, but they're definitely backing up that trumpet sound. Violins are just doing a 1/ tremolo with eighth notes. So essentially they're doing 16th notes, just double. So no, not even that. Just kind of going crazy here, just accenting the melody and what's going on there. Now we've added the trombones, by the way, to the melody. So originally it was just French horns and trumpets. Now it's them and both upper trombones. Upper strings, flutes, oboes. Now that's a great part. So we have basically a melody and then a counter melody, or they're both melody. But so we have the strings doing bum 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 ba da 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 dum, and then we have horns doing bum 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 ba da dum bum 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 ba da dum bum bum. So let's go back and hear that one more time. Strings here, accents with trombones and trumpets. Now here we go. Just a great combination of strings and horns, not playing the same thing, playing counter melodies to each other, but they just tie in so well. So it's worth noting here that kind of chaotic rise up to the next accent or the next measure. So bum ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. That's literally just violins 1, 2, violas doing a scale of 16ths up to the next note. Very simple, but it sounds really good. Let's do it again. Literally every instrument playing here. 16th notes with the strings. So who's playing the melody now? Well, it's horns obviously mainly, but then also woodwinds are backing that up. Violins, violas, still doing kind of crazy 16th note runs, just up, down, all over the place. So we have a nice pulse here going, which he has not really had before. This is the first time we kind of get a steady dun 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 dun, which is a nice contrast to the kind of free feel we've been having. Trombones, violas, and then the bass strings are basically giving us that pulse. And then the melody is now played by the upper strings and the woodwinds. Trumpets now, they are an octave apart, so trumpets 1 and 2 playing the higher octave, trumpets 3 and 4 playing the lower octave. Strings are now doing their 16th note runs again, along with the flutes, and the pulse is now being carried by the other woodwinds. The horns have now joined in on that pulse. And trombones. Now that's pretty cool. Some recordings you can tell better than others. Some pan it different, like trumpets 3 and 4 are panned differently than 1 and 2. But so what you hear is da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. Trumpets 3 and 4 are doing that first da-da-da, and then they're just holding that note. 1 and 2 come in with the da-da-da-da-da-da. So it kind of gives a cool stereo effect. I don't know that this recording is doing it as well, but some do. All right, so this is obviously just crazy. What is going on here? Because the rhythm just feels so absolutely different. And so when I heard this the first time, I could not even tell what was going on, right? It just feels so like out of place. Like, where's the beat? Like, I couldn't even tell where the beat was. So what's happening here is trombones are playing essentially syncopation. So they waited a beat. So if it's in 4/4, so trombones did bum 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 bum, and then the other kind of contrasting to that. So that's already weird enough, playing the dotted quarter with an eighth, but then it just progressively gets like more and more offbeat. Contrasting to that is the lower strings and the lower woodwinds waiting an eighth note and then coming in with eighth notes. So they're just doing ba-da-da-da. Wait, I can't even do it. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's kind of building up to the higher registers. Now, that combined with what the trombones are doing creates this kind of offbeat, weird feel. And the timpani is the only thing right here keeping a steady pulse, and it is just doing quarter notes of the bass line. Bum, 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 bum. So let's try that again here. There's that stereo. I can't even... There's the beat. So now we're back with horns and trumpets with the melody. Just added woodwinds there. Now he loves that ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. He does that every time this melody transitions to a new key or anything like that. So what's going on there? It's just eighth notes with one line tremolo by the strings. So da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then the woodwinds are kind of building on that. They're also doing the same thing, obviously without the tremolo. So ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. So new key here. Same instruments though, horn and trumpet are playing the melody. So we've now hit the highest register that we've hit so far in this piece with the trumpets. Trumpet, it's a B-flat trumpet. It's hitting, for the B-flat trumpet, a C, a high C, which for every other instrument is just a high B-flat. Okay, now here he's really done that build. So he usually, so far, he's just done that build for 2 measures. And really, you can only hear it well for the last measure. So, and then it goes bum, bum, bum. But this is the first time he really builds it up. It's literally starting on that whole note, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4 measures. So this is the longest he's built it. Let's go back a little bit. Yeah, 4 measure build. Trumpets are the only thing playing the melody right now. Now that is just beautiful. So the strings are playing the melody. Bum ba da 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 da. Horns are doing this beautiful counter melody along with the clarinets and violas and cellos, which is bum 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 bum. Horns are literally hitting like one of their highest register notes that's normally used, so it just gives it this really bright, kind of blaring feel, but it still sounds good. Bum, 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 bum. Trumpets in octaves again. 2 on the upper, 2 on the lower register. Now that is just cool. So we got melodies and counter melodies. Basically, they're kind of doing it in rounds. They're not playing the exact same notes, but they're doing the same kind of thing. Dun, da, 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 and then bum, 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 and then violins come in, bum, 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 just a little bit later. So it's almost in round, but it creates this just crazy chaos that sounds really good together. Let's do it again. So you hear both there. All right, so this is obviously the conclusion of the piece. We can already tell it's kind of building up to the finale. What's going on? So we have the kind of final theme that's going to play, which is ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. So ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum is trumpets and woodwinds. They go to forte piano, which means bum, and then they get really soft and they only crescendo at the end of their note. When they go soft, we have the trombones doing bum, 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 bum. Just that theme we've all heard before, but he's just adding it on top of what's already going on during the more quiet part. So he always has something going on, which is really cool. But it's also interesting to note the bass notes are way off here. So if this was the very end of the piece, if this was like the last measure of the piece, which will happen in a very short time, we do ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, boom, right? That's the like tonic bass note, right? Ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, boom, which is for trumpets a B flat, but it's just an A flat. So what is he doing with this bass note thing? Well, he's building suspense. So we don't think it's the very end of the piece. He's making the bass note not what our brain wants it to be. So instead of ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, boom, because that will happen at the last time it does it, he's doing ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, boom, just to give us that like, whoa, what's going on? It creates a little bit of chaos, confusion, but also we know it's building to the end of the piece, but we're just not there yet. So let's hear it again. And we get to hear the cool part again. Boom, which is what is it here? It's an A natural. So it is in direct contrast to every other note that's playing, which is an A flat. So ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, bum, if you want to stay in that same octave. So everything else is playing ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, bum, which is literally a half step above what every other instrument is playing. So it creates that tension that's like, this is building to the end. One more time. Bum. Second time. Again, not the note we were expecting, right? What is it this time? It is a low D. So everyone else is playing an A flat. We're playing a D in the bass here. Bum. So again, that conflicts with what we're thinking, but it's the second time. It's going to do it 3 times total, so let's go to the next one. Now the French horns have the counter melody. Bum. So that is the note we were expecting the whole time. Now we know the piece is starting to finish up. And who's doing this counter melody, which is the original? Bum, 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 bum. It's horns and trombones now. So the first time it happened, it was just trombones. Second time it happened, it was just the horns. Now it's both of them under the trumpets, woodwind, strings playing that high B or high A flat, excuse me. So let's go back quite a bit and hear all this again. Weird. Trombones. Again, weird. Horns. The correct note. Horns and trombones. All right, so that last measure, obviously, everyone played. Ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. Interestingly, the only one that did not play that is the timpani, because those notes are so close together. Ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. He probably didn't want to like tune the timpani or have two different drums that close, or it wasn't possible, or whatever, or it's less likely to be possible. So the timpani is the only one playing ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum instead of ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. Just an interesting little aside there. And then, of course, up to the last note, we have woodwinds and strings doing this sixth triplet, or I guess, what is that, a sextuplet? Doing a sextuplet of 16th notes. So let's hear the last two measures. So we have that build up there. So all in all, a very, very interesting piece. I highly recommend, if you want to study this yourself, just buy this. I'll link below. It's available at Sheet Music Plus, which is I think that's where I got it from. It's a great retailer of scores, but it's provided by Hal Leonard. Anyone has access to it. So, and this Symphony Pops has a lot of stuff, by the way. So everyone has access to this. If you love film scores or scores in general, or music in general, I highly recommend you buy one of your favorite scores and literally study it. You don't even have to really read music. I mean, you kind of do, but you can just look at it and kind of start to learn. And what better way to learn than with your favorite piece of music? And you really, you know the thing. You've heard it a million times. Maybe it's Back to the Future. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's a John Williams thing. You've heard it a million times, right? And now you get to dive into it behind the scenes and see exactly who's playing what, the rhythms, the different melodies, harmonies, counter melodies, bass lines, percussion, like what everything is doing to just bring you that overall feel. That's the cool thing about music, and that's really why I like studying film scores. Anyway, I'm going to take a hydration sip here. Nice. Yeah, so subscribe for future videos. Who knows what's going to be next. Give this video a thumbs up and comment. I'd love to hear your comments. This is my first video doing this, so I skipped over a lot of stuff. This score is very in-depth. I mean, and I highlight stuff that I want to bring up specifically, but I highlight very specific things. Here's just an example. I use colored highlighters to bring out specific points. So I use a different color for, say, the melody versus the harmonies versus counter melodies, versus like tempo changes and time signature changes and stuff like that. So I highly recommend you get a score that you enjoy, see if it's available, and just dive into it. Anyway, until next time, have a great day, my friends.